Final speaker from the proposition will be, as you have probably already realized, the outgoing president, Gabriel Barton-Singer of Trinity College. I'm sure this will not be the final time he'll be speaking in this chamber, getting a free dinner.
Thank you, Mr. President, my lord, ladies and gentlemen. Normally, I clown around when I'm in the chair. I try to create levity on serious motions. Tonight, I'm going to try to make seriousness out of a motion that most people have taken in good heart and spirit. But I will start with a little bit of rebuttal. Former President Ivers said that YouTube stars are the people who are most important at the moment. Well, the union hosts YouTube stars, and more importantly, with our many thousands of subscribers growing every day, we are a YouTube star in our own right. I also like to make some objections to what was said by the second opposition speaker. They said oratory is not relevant. They said words are empty. But I don't think words are empty, and I don't think oratory isn't relevant. I think that it's the only thing we have, and I'm going to explore that in my speech. A lot has been said about the union as an institution that's pro-free speech, that gives a chance to stand up to tyranny. I think in this country that's not what this institution's about. It's not about free speech. We're not seriously under threat. I'm not going to write Brendan O'Neill's Spectator article for him. I understand that bots do it anyway, but I'm going to make clear that I don't think free speech is what we do best. I think we do civil discourse best. And I think that the decline of civil discourse is both a symptom of and a cause of the collapse of our ability to debate ideas honestly with our fellow citizens. And that this is going to be the cause of several existential threats to the human race being successful, and that we will not tackle the issues which threaten civilization. So not only is there a point in the Cambridge Union, the point of the Cambridge Union is to save the world. I will take points later. We have seen, over the last 50 years, the collapse of independent institutions that people trust that are shared by countries at large. President Reagan was mentioned. Under President Reagan, the fairness doctrine was repealed in the mid-1980s in America. It meant that television shows were no longer obliged to show both sides of an argument. In this chamber, we are obliged to show both sides of an argument. We are obliged to hear opposing views. We're obliged to hear them with respect. We're obliged to hear them in a timely manner, within reason. We're obliged, well, we're not obliged, but we are entitled to make points from the floor. We're entitled to make criticisms and floor speeches. This is not something echoed in wider society, and it's something that is fatal to wider society that is not echoed. In America, we have seen a growing polarization between Democrats and Republicans. And it's not just a political game, it's the country. In rural areas, they vote Republican. In urban areas, they vote Democrat. Half the country hates the other, doesn't understand the other, can't talk to the other. And this is not sustainable. It's not sustainable if they're going to deal with the existential crises that threaten that country and the world. In this specific case, I think climate change is illustrative. Because climate change is not like a debate here. It is a fact. And facts cannot be democratized. You can't pretend they don't exist. But if you don't have a fairness doctrine, if you don't have both sides of the argument, inevitably what will happen is that in one silo of the media, new facts will be created. Fox News, the Republican media, treats climate change as false. And there's no opposing view. And so for millions of people, they hear one message, one untrue message, and they're going to be in power 50% of the time. We have to learn as societies how to talk to one another across political divides. Yes. I think you need your own microphone.
Is it not dangerous to present things that are settled facts as two sides of a debate? For example, in vaccines cause autism, a scientific research paper spread widely and it's accepted as one side of a debate, when in reality it's settled fact.
Indeed, and I think this is in fact vital to what we're saying, because civil discourse has editorial judgment. It has somebody who said, these are the reasonable bounds of what people can think knowing the scientific facts in a functional society. And that is what I think we do. I don't believe this chamber has had debates about things that are proven to be unscientific. We had a climate change debate this term, and the motion was not, is climate change real? It was, is it going to kill us all immediately or not? And I think that is incredibly helpful, because the speech I wrote is not as I had hoped it to be, and I therefore decided to improvise most of these, and you reminded me of what I was going to say. Elites are essential for deciding what reasonable debates are. Now, the reason Reagan... No, you may not like it, it's a fact. People have to understand science. People have to understand that some things can't be dismissed as nonsense. The truth is that Reagan got rid of the fairness doctrine because he didn't like the way that scientific facts were disruptive to his political agenda. He wanted to be able to create a media in which scientific facts were absent, in which they were their own version of truth. But in this chamber, we do civil discourse. The very learned people in here can challenge me when they know more about science than me, which will be all the time. I don't know anything about science. But the silos in America between different worlds mean that there is no discussion between different groups who believe different things, and there is no way to persuade people of different things. And of course, we've seen it here with Brexit. One side said this would cause economic catastrophe, the other said it wouldn't, and nobody shared a common rulebook of discourse. Nobody shared the set of rules by which the debate would be had, or standards of truth, which things were statistically significant or not. And consequently, because the debate that was had was not civil, was not conducted in the correct editorial manner, cross-generational hatred, rural-urban hatred, protests with millions, and now the threat of our union, no thank you, collapsing, is in our country. In country after country, the decline of common spaces with editorial judgment, where we can have civil discourse, where we debate with each other in good faith, are dying out. And the polarization that follows is all too obvious. No thank you. Persuading one another in an open debate, on the terms I've described, is rare. I acknowledge that. It's difficult. Socrates learnt that about 2,500 years ago. People's propensity is always to double down, and very rarely to listen and to learn. And institutions like this one cannot alone solve our national crisis of not talking to one another. But there is still a point in the Cambridge Union, because without it, we really have no hope. Because if we can't do civil discourse in this chamber, if we can't, in the discussions we have tonight with allotted time, with an idea of what the question is, with the ability to be held accountable, with, if I dare say, good editorial judgment in who's invited to speak, if we cannot persuade each other in this setting, what hope does our society have of talking across political divides? If people walk through the No Lobby tonight, you are not just condemning this union, you're not just condemning the Edwardian white tie, the self-aggrandizing officers, you are condemning everybody in the human race to darkness, ignorance, and death, because you are saying that people cannot be persuaded, that we cannot win the argument on climate change, and that therefore we are all going to die. Unless you acknowledge... No, thank you. I'm in my last minute. We have to learn to talk to each other And if we fail to talk to each other, as this country has in the past, and resort instead to imposing our views in a majoritarian way and descending into violence, and there are many crises that face us which will require rational debate, we are going to have very dark times. Exiled Thucydides knew all that a speech could say about democracy and what dictators do. The elderly rubbish they prattle to an apathetic grave, all written down in his book, this habit-forming pain, mismanagement and grief, we must suffer them all again. If you walk through the No Lobby tonight, you condemn us to that suffering. You say we cannot persuade anybody, and you say we are doomed to die. Thank you.